Hello and welcome. I'm Vijay Srinivasan and this is Talking Sense with Srini. The five states voting in April 2026, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, West Bengal, Assam and Puducherry are deciding 824 assembly seats across very different political traditions. But here's the thread connecting all of them. The Bharatiya Janata Party may not be winning everywhere, but Hindutva certainly is. The ideological vocabulary of the right has so thoroughly colonized Indian electoral politics that the left, the Dravidian movement, the socialist parties, and secular incumbents are all in their own way speaking the same language they spent decades opposing. We bring this show on the backdrop of one remarkable moment of honesty from none other than the Marxist veteran and former finance minister of the state of Kerala, Dr. T.M. Thomas Isaac, in an exclusive interview with the Federal, where he admitted that the Sabarimala controversy and the left's handling of it directly handed the BJP a foothold in Kerala.
The inroad of BJP has been largely from the Congress and UDF fold and upper caste mainly. But the Sabarimala has been a watershed in the sense they could make advance into the backward caste, and in that sense also attract certain segments of the left support base.
That single admission opens a much larger story that runs through all five states going to the polls. And joining us to decode this is our editor-in-chief, S. Srinivasan. Let me begin with you. Thomas Isaac, in an interview with our correspondent Rajiv Ramachandran, he has said on record that the Sabarimala decision handed BJP an opening. A remarkable admission from a Marxist veteran there. What does it tell you about very way of Kerala politics' evolution?
Yeah, so it's a very important statement coming from Thomas Isaac, former minister and a very important, leader in CPM. Obviously, the ground has changed, and he admits that. And not just in other parts of India, it has already changed. But the change has come to Kerala, and this admission, frank admission, is something which is interesting and we should take note of. So the thing is that, as you know, that entire appeal of Hindutva, which was spreading from north basically, in the heartland, the thing was that in the subsequent election after Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power in 2014, there has been a resistance in the south, in southern parts, and various other parts because of, the various local identities which came into fore. Hindutva, or the appeal of what they also called as the nationalist, which many differ with that formulation, also had its match in various states in various ways. In Tamil Nadu, it has faced a different situation. In Kerala, it has faced a different situation. But yes, if your suggestion is from your initial introduction, and the question is, did Sabarimala case gave an opening to BJP? Yes, it is true. I think it seems to have given an opening. Now, the thing here is that this is admitted by M. Govindan, who is the CPM General Secretary in Kerala, in his reply to Supreme Court's 9-member bench, which is going into the Sabarimala issue. The judgment in 2018 allowed all women of all ages entry into the temple, which was earlier restricted, and women between the age group of 10 and 50, and since they were considered, that's a menstruating period, so that wasn't allowed. So, but the judgment, very progressive judgment, said that all women should have the right to go and visit the temple. Now, CPM supported that. As a government, they strongly even encouraged some women volunteers to go and pray in the temple. But there seems to be a subtle change in the position, rather not so subtle. There is a drastic change in the position. In that petition, the left party, CPM, has said that, we're not going to either support or oppose the entry of women into the temple, but this issue should be very closely examined by, Hindu scholars and Hindu social leaders. And that's the formulation which they have come out with, which is kind of acceptance that, look, the left leaders do agree that, the ground has changed. They do realize that they were losing a lot of Hindu votes and electorally it is not supporting them. So they change their position because, interestingly, in Kerala, while the demography is such that there is almost 48% Hindus, besides 52% Hindus, there are 48% Muslims and Christians. So the demography is very different. So, and Communist Party, CPM, always had a strong backing of Hindus, especially backward classes. And also they had this thing about the forward, but largely backward classes. And Pinarayi Vijayan himself is a backward who has come
Erava
up.
community.
Yeah, so very powerful backing of that community. Now, the party CPM had begun to worry that perhaps they're losing support of that community. So to bring it back, they have kind of recalibrated their position, and it certainly happened because of very aggressive push by BJP. This was also in a way supported by Congress party. So UDF also chanced upon that, and they also started pressing. But it certainly BJP started doing it, and it is important for BJP to do that because they wanted to show that it's not just the Ayodhya issue, that there are other issues as well which we can expand, and they kind of try to expand that. And it is very important for them to get into new areas like Kerala, because it's very important to get that territory, to show that we are not just a North Indian party, we are not specific to one Hindi heartland, we are pan-India, and therefore it is important that they get into Kerala. And this Sabarimala has certainly helped them, and that has put left on the defensive, and therefore you see a different character of elections being fought in Kerala, which is always a bipolar between LDF and UDF, but BJP is now gradually trying to make itself into a factor there.
That's right. They already have an MP there, Suresh Gopi. Shifting focus to what's happening in the neighbouring state of Tamil Nadu, I think the situation, obviously there's no Sabarimala there, but there seems to be something else brewing there. Periyar built the self-respect movement. He famously broke the idols of Lord Ganesha on explicit rationalism and anti-religion. He's seen as a poster boy of atheism in Tamil Nadu there. That's also the kind of tradition that the founding fathers of the DMK, Annadurai or Mr. Karunanidhi must have, inherited, and no less Mr. M.K. Stalin as well, the current chief minister. But, but what we see right now is, Stalin has to convince his voters in a way that, look, my wife is going to temples, and, the DMK has renovated 4,000 temples, and, the devotees in fact favor my government and so on. So what's actually changed in Tamil Nadu?
Yeah, so unlike in Kerala, the change in Tamil Nadu had come much earlier. See, if 2018 was a kind of a turning point for Kerala, this happened much earlier in Tamil Nadu. If you remember, if we had to go back, one major incident happened in the year 1981. That's the time when in Meenakshipuram district in Tirunelveli, a whole lot of caste Hindus, basically belonging to, backward, I think they were scheduled caste, and they converted to Islam. And that sent an alarm bell all over India. Especially BJP immediately rushed in, and then they also sensed an opportunity. Now that certainly changed the way the politics here, the Dravidian politics had shaped itself. Though it's a Dravidian politics, the entire thing was based on a social transformation, giving equality to all people socially. Basically, it was more of an assertion of backward politics and intermediate caste politics, with a certain enemy they saw in a forward caste, especially Brahmins. They targeted that, and the entire formulation was around that. Now, Periyar certainly was a rationalist. He kept God some distance from religion. He didn't want to mix it. He didn't actually. So he didn't believe.
God.
He didn't believe it. So the thing here is the DMK's many followers, including Karunanidhi, many of them very strongly believed in that in the initial years. But then things change over a period of time. There is a split which happened in DMK. DMK and AIDMK went separate ways. Before that, MGR was pulled up because he went to a temple, I think Guruvayur temple, and he was asked, why did he do that? So he faced, and then he gave an answer that because he saw a mother and the goddess, and therefore he went there. So much earlier, even during Anna's period, see, Anna invoked a saint to say that pronounce his coinage, saying that which was done by the saint, saying that onre kulam orune devan, which means basically saying that, we are one community, we are one large community, and there is one God. Now, this particular formulation was carried forward almost like a mantra by DMK, and it is repeatedly said, and that itself kind of, a secular idea that, everybody is equal. That's what it was. But then gradually, now this is, it traveled a distance from being atheist. So the position changed. Then if you look further, Karunanidhi himself changed his position over the years, because AIDMK, when Jayalalitha became the chief minister, she obviously started believing in astrology, and therefore she started looking at, before taking important decisions, date, time, and all those, basically what Hindus believe in. They all, refer to any auspicious event. If a wedding has to be done, the Patri or Kundali or, Jadagam, those kind of things. All these things started coming into mainstream. So gradually things changed, So this has been a long-going thing. But DMK, of course, had a very strong section of Periyarist that continues. And then DK, which is their ideological principle, has its influence on DMK, and that continues. But then DMK also changes position. For instance, Karunanidhi himself, who was earlier, he was sporting a red and black shawl, the color changed to green, and after a while it turned yellow. It didn't turn saffron, but it did turn yellow, which is basically a sign of Hinduism, of purity and all those kind of things. So there is a certain subtle changes which he also brought in. And it is very well known that, the current chief minister's wife visits temple, like you yourself referred to. So these things have been brought in, that the earlier formulation of separation between, state and religion. So, but then in their private lives, religion was beginning to get gradual acceptance. But despite, this has been happening over a period of time, but the hard push of Hindutva, however, didn't have much currency here. See, so the thing is, people here, while, asserting the Hindu identity, they begin to identify, they wear various marks. Thing here in Tamil Nadu is, it is not against other religion. It is not against Islam. It's not against Christianity. There is no hatred, or there is no such, using this to othering others. Those kind of things haven't happened here. And that's the reason that even if you see BJP, both in Kerala and in Tamil Nadu, keep saying that, look, we are not against minorities, or we are not against, so they have these formulations here as well, where they constantly try to explain that, this is a propaganda being spread by the rivals, but we are very much what we are. But then they did some aggressive push. They did a Vel Yatra, they did Ganesh Chaturthi, wanted to bring in that, more aggressive, celebration. They also started questioning Stalin, why he doesn't greet Hindus on Diwali.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, that has also put pressure on DMK, and therefore the politics here is certainly changing. So you can't say that the saffron wave from the north, it may not have completely swept the south, but it has certainly made its entry here as well. That one has to admit.
Now we're going to go to the gateway of the East. What's happening in West Bengal. Mamata Banerjee built her Trinamool Congress with the support of, poor women, and most importantly, the minorities, Muslims on that note. So, but the BJP also attacked her of minority appeasement for years now. In 2021, she won comfortably despite that, but 2024 was certainly a warning, the Lok Sabha elections there. Since then, she seems to have systematically recalibrated her electoral strategy there. And Mamta is now reciting Chandi Path on camera, invoking her Banerjee heritage, which is a Brahmin heritage, in the assembly, spending 250 rupees on a replica of a Jagannath temple. And the RSS is also quietly, saying she does some good work. So is that a winning strategy, or you think she's walking into the trap of the Bharatiya Janata Party?
Well, again, like these two states explained, I must say there one thing about Kerala and Tamil Nadu. While all these things have happened, these two states also very strong social movement which they have had. The politics here is built on those movements. That is what the Dravidian thing here, and that's what left, politics in Kerala as well. West Bengal, it's again, the left has been power for a very long time, and the left actually used to say, they look down upon anybody who would embrace, any spirituals, any imagery or anything spiritual, they would scoff. And they used to say that religion is a distraction from mass struggle. And they would often quote Marx to say that, religion is opium of the people. So they used to have these formulations. But then things have changed there also. Again there, like I gave example of MGR in Tamil Nadu, Subhash Chakrabarti, one of the most powerful left leaders in Bengal, was actually censored within the party circles for performing Kali Puja. Then later the formulation was, it was begun to consider as a cultural fest. But then what has now certainly happened, that the religious identity has come to the fore, and it is being, and literally all politicians are wearing it on their sleeves. They're displaying it very openly, and that kind of assertion has come. And TMC, of course, which has actually come to power after beating left parties, didn't have these kind of, very hard thing there, but they also did believe in secular politics, and that's why they have a strong support base among minorities. But again, there was a gradual change which began to happen. Mamata Banerjee, who was already, she has given some allowances in mosques, Maulvis and others, they were all giving, so they were given some allowance, but then it was extended to temples also. And, so those kind of things have begun to happen. Left leaders, there is our own federal story, I refer to that. Meenakshi Mukherjee, she's a firebrand CPM leader. She conducted yagna while performing, while going through her electioneering. There's another leader, Kaltan Das Gupta, and he begins his rally every day after his prayers in a temple. So that way, the social landscape has changed. A lot of such examples you can find which is happening in West Bengal also. And she has also announced lots of kind of allowances for temple pujaris, temple renovation, temple reconstruction. And then the biggest is Jagannath temple, which was built by, which was helped built by, in West Bengal by the government. So these kind of things have begun to happen here. All these things perhaps wouldn't have happened if BJP hadn't aggressively campaigned in West Bengal. So obviously this push of saffron which was blowing from UP and UP particularly, and other places in Hindi heartland, has now blowing eastward as well, and that's a change which you're seeing on the ground. So therefore you see a situation where Congress and left were completely marginalized, and BJP became the main challenger to Mamata Banerjee. So obviously that's what has happened, and she's trying to give a hard fight to them, though it'll be a record first time for her.
In Assam, you have got Himanta Biswa Sarma, who was groomed as a congressman, and now he has switched parties, and he's been the chief minister. So today he's calling 2026 a civilizational shift, and he's been consistently seen as somebody who ranks top in terms of putting out those communal commons, even sometimes, beating those coming from the Sangh background there. So, how do you explain that? You don't have to see, your stance depend on where you sit.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. Himanta Biswa Sarma is, as you correctly said, is actually a staunch congressman. He's not an RSS, or he's not a strong Hindutva person, as one could call him. But what has happened? What is the quick transformation which you see, which is actually, some of his statements utterly bordering on communal talk, and in fact the opposition there had actually filed a case against him.
That's right, yeah.
That his electioneering is very toxic, he makes all kinds of statements, and he's particularly targeting Muslims. There is a certain background to what is happening in Assam. One of the journalists from Assam brilliantly explained it in a video to the federal, and I would refer to that. Now, what he perhaps what has happened in Assam is that this change hasn't come over suddenly over years. You have to see over 50 years. Identity of Assam, the Assamese identity, which came through that in a way formed because of the AGPs, the student movement which took place in the 1980s. That whole lot of Bangladeshis have infiltrated into Assam, and that is changing the character of the whole state. And that agitation resulted in a change in power. That basically AGP took to power in, I think, somewhere in 1981. They came to power. Then Prafulla Kumar Mahanta, very young student leader, was he perhaps in his 30s, became the chief minister. So therefore, this that feeling was always there in Assam, that outsiders or invaders or people who were coming in. Therefore, the Assam Accord was also signed between Rajiv Gandhi and the protesters. Then a section of AGP then became violent, and ULFA was formed. And then again, for many years, this continued, and before Congress came back to power once again. Interestingly, when Congress came back to power, people who worked to change the excesses of, political excesses and other things of AGP included Biswa Sarma. Now, he is trying to cash on that fear, that identity, by deliberately using such words. And obviously, he constantly uses a word Mia, which is pejorative and considered referring to the Bangladeshi Muslim who come into India. So he refers to that repeatedly to constantly drive a point that, the whole idea of that Hindus in Assam are in danger if they are not protected, and therefore he's playing on that identity politics and trying to give a very hard push once again electorally and cash on that. So what has happened in all these issues is it's become a powerful electoral tool now. So what you see in Kerala, what you're seeing in Tamil Nadu, what you're seeing in West Bengal and in Assam, constantly the theme is the same. Everywhere, it's for electoral politics, it has become a very important tool to use it to basically appeal to the minds of cross-section of people by raising these, kind of fears about a section and draw votes.
One last question there. We don't want to leave Puducherry, the humble union territory of Puducherry. So, you see similar trends there as well.
Yeah, sure. So, we had another, in the previous episode, we discussed Puducherry in detail. Of course, Puducherry has a very unique character of its own. It has its own unique identity. Puducherrians are not Dravidians, though they are the almost backyard of Tamil Nadu and Chennai. They're so close to the capital, yet they are unaffected, and they have their own identity which they want to safeguard. Sure, RSS been very active there. In fact, they take marches on on Republic Day, which is actually, if you see the Constitution, we are still we are a secular nation, and that's what restrains many of these hardcore Hindutva politicians also to somewhere stop themselves, because the Constitution does say that India is still a secular state, and therefore they have operate within those four walls of that framework. But still, it is interesting that on a day when we are celebrating Republic Day, taking a march is it's an interesting it's obviously it has a certain message. But the people there are very they do understand these issues, and they're okay with BJP coming to power, and they are fine with BJP's assertive politics, but they don't see it as that would change their character or identity in any way.
That's right.
So even in the past, when an attempt was made, MGR from Tamil Nadu went and made a statement about Puducherry. The people there didn't like it, and therefore, for a number of years, AIDMK couldn't win any election in that state. So
I think it's more of a transactional approach.
Yeah, it's an absolutely transactional approach, because Puducherrians know that all their funds come from center.
That's right.
And therefore, it is natural that the politicians from center come and assert they use this tiny place as their laboratory to try out various experiments, various policies, and they are fine with that. But it doesn't mean that would change their
The very social
character.
fabric of the Indian territory.
So that they are keeping it as it is.
Thank you very much, sir. Very insightful talking to you.
Thank you.